Good morning. My name is Angela Caesar, and I am the worship assistant for today's service. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we gather in worship to reflect upon matters of ultimate concern in our lives. We gather in reverence for the mystery of life, to deepen our awareness of who we are and what we hold most dear, and to discern our unique way of serving the needs of our larger world. If you are a newcomer and visiting us today, know that we're very glad to have you. After the service, we hope you will introduce yourselves to us and that you will take the time to visit the welcome table in the lobby. If you would like more information about our congregation or Unitarian Universalism, we invite you to complete the blue visitor card, which is in the pew. And you can give that to the welcome desk later or put that in the collection plate. Immediately after the service, we will reconvene in the social hall across the lobby for coffee and conversation and our UU Cafe, where lunch can be purchased at a modest price. If you're here with us for the first time, we would like to treat you for lunch, and again, you can go to the welcome table and you will receive a lunch ticket. Before we enter into our service, there are a few announcements. Please take this time to turn off your cell phones and electronic devices. I want to tell you a little story about this. The last time I was here, I said that, and I said it again for people who might have come in late, because I get very distracted with the sound. And I realized that I had left my phone in the back with Pat, and it was on. And the sound that you get when you hear my phone is a railroad train, because I usually don't hear it. I was so mortified, I was so nervous sitting here and couldn't wait to get off the pulpit to go back and put it off. So please do. I would like to take this time to introduce our guest preacher, Reverend Jef Gamblee, who is at the pulpit for his third visit. As always, he promises to ask that musical question, what does it take to be a modern major Unitarian Universalist? Pastor Jef was ordained by the White Plains UU congregation in 2009 and spent his active congregational and community service ministry in the New York City area. He currently lives with his wife, Patricia Wallenjack, in beautiful Westerville, Ohio, where his retirement ministry includes serving on the UU Justice Ohio volunteer staff, working with the Ohio Poor People's Campaign, being a grandfather and house elf for his daughter and grandsons, banjo playing, and serving as staff for his cat Belle. It's a particular pleasure for me to be part of the service today because I met Pastor Jef 20 years ago when he was working as a chaplain at Calvary Hospital in the Bronx. He was just completing the evening shift, and I was a chaplain intern doing my first of 4 units of clinical pastoral education. This was my first overnight as a chaplain at the hospital, and I was a little apprehensive, if you want to say that nicely. I was very afraid. So speaking with Jeff, who was a very welcoming UU face, he certainly allayed my fears, and all did go well. Thank you, Pastor Jef, for being with us today. As we enter into this time together, we pause for a moment for us to share the sad news that an active member of UUCSR has died since we last were together. On Tuesday, December 31st, 97-year-old Ann Jorwin died peacefully while hospitalized and under sedation for an emergency medical procedure. We give thanks for the opportunity to have known Ann these many years, and we're relieved that she did not suffer at all. We mourn with her sons, Ronald and Paul, and their families. A funeral service will be held here today at 1:30. And now, in the spirit of community that is with us in times of sadness and joy, I invite you to greet those around you, especially those you may not know.
Whenever. If we see people talking very actively, we kind of give them a minute, but
Okay.
you know, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, good to see you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna hit, and then you're gonna do opening words, right?
I thought we had they sang first.
Sang the bell. Oh, a prelude, right?
Yeah.
Then opening words. Okay,
Yeah.
you're right. Okay, good enough.
How do I follow that? Reverend Mark Bellatini writes, "We are here with expectations alive, spoken and unspoken. We open ourselves to whatever breaks in upon us, or transforms us, or heals us, or enlightens us, or summons us to witness or decide. May our reason and our passion keep us true to ourselves, to each other, and to our vision of becoming." Our chalice lighting words, I think, are familiar. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment, and our future can begin. I invite you now to rise in body and or spirit and join in with our first song, number 298. Wake Now My Senses, and we'll do all 5 verses.
Please remain standing for our words and song of affirmation. They are printed in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge with freedom, to serve unity, this we affirm and covenant with each other. Excuse me. If you are grateful for the presence of Unitarian Universalism in this world and for this congregation, become its advocate. If you are concerned for the future of our faith, Share our message. If principles resonate deep within you, give to this religious tradition your devotion. Our tradition of Unitarian Universalism needs your devotion and generosity to survive and to make a difference in this world. Will the ushers please come forward?
Thanks, guys. It was wonderful. Quite a music ministry they provide. Our first reading. A scorpion, which cannot swim, asks a frog to carry it across the river on its back. The frog hesitates, afraid of being stung by the scorpion. But the scorpion argues that if it stung the frog, they'd both drown. Okay? So the frog considers this argument as a sensible argument and agrees to transport the scorpion across the river. But midway, the scorpion stings the frog anyway, which now dooms both of them. The dying frog asks the scorpion, "Why did you sting me? You knew what the consequences would be." And the scorpion said, "I couldn't help it. It's just my nature."
Our next reading is by Leslie Jamison, entitled, "Empathy is a Choice We Make." Empathy isn't just something that happens to us, a meteor shower of synapses firing across the brain. It's also a choice we make to pay attention, to extend ourselves. It's made of exertion, that dowdier cousin of impulse. Sometimes we care for another because we know we should or because it is asked for. But this doesn't make our caring hollow. The act of choosing simply means we've committed ourselves to a set of behaviors greater than the sum of our individual inclinations. This confession of effort chafes against the notion that empathy should always rise unbidden, that genuine means the same thing as unwilled, that intentionality is the enemy of love. But I believe in intention, and I believe in work. I believe in waking up in the middle of the night and packing our bags and leaving our worst selves for our better ones. We enter now into a period of quiet contemplation to hear the yearnings and needs of our own hearts and to reflect upon the needs of our circle of kinship and the larger world. Those who wish to come forward to light candles of sorrow, thanksgiving, or hope are invited to do so now.
This is our time for pastoral meditation and an opportunity for your own as well. After I finish reading the meditation, we'll take about 2 minutes to sit together in silence. But during that time of silence, I invite you to speak the name of someone, living or dead, whose name needs to be spoken in beloved community for whatever the reason. I invite you to do that, if you wish, during our time of quiet reflection after the meditation. Let us hold in our hearts anyone who has the power over the lives of others, that they may be just, particularly those who lead our nation. We ask for them what we ask for ourselves: the wisdom to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly. We remember those who defend the helpless, who advocate for rights we take for granted, those who strive for justice, and those who work to find a way to peace. We remember today, in the last 14 days, there have been at least 14 assaults on our Jewish brothers and sisters, and there is a march today, I believe, that started about 33 minutes ago in Manhattan, observing that this cannot go on. Let us affirm that the language of racism and exclusion, whether uttered by elected officials or the guy sitting next to us, is offensive to the beloved community. May we hear the call for justice. Let us remember with thanks the families, the neighbors, the teachers, teammates, and all of those in our community who support and promote the health and well-being of our children and our young adults. We choose at this moment to lay down the burden of our shortcomings and grasp the courage, the integrity to begin anew. Together we affirm our capacity for goodness and grace, for freedom and purpose and joy. Let us not be trapped in our past, but freed by creation to live and to grow today and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Let us remember with compassion the wounded and the lost. Where there is injury, let us work for health. Where there is confusion and loss, let us bring peace and the gift of knowing that we are equally children of and in the universe, just exactly the way we are. May we remember this day our loved ones who have left our presence through death or decision. May we continue to keep them in our hearts, living in the comfort of their love for us and our love for them. Let's now take 2 minutes. And in closing our meditation, let us close with the words, Amen. Amen.
Climbing up on Salisbury Hill, I could see the city light. Wind was blowing, time stood still. Eagle flew out of the night. He was something to observe. Came in close, I heard a voice, standing, stretching every nerve. Had to listen, had no choice. I did not believe the information, just had to trust imagination. My heart going boom, boom, boom. Son, he said, grab your things, I've come to take you home. Silence I resigned. My friends would think I was a nut, turning water into wine. Open doors would soon be shut. So I went from day to day, though my life was in a rut, till I thought of what I'd say, which connection I should shut. I was feeling part of the scenery. I walked right out of the machinery. My heart going boom, boom, boom. Son, he said, grab your things, I've come to take you home. Spins her net, I'm never where I want to be. In liberty she pirouettes when I think that I am free. Watch the empty silhouette who close their eyes but still can see. No one taught them etiquette. I will show another me. Today I don't need a replacement. I'll tell them what the smile on my face meant. My heart going boom, boom, boom. Hey, she said, you can keep my things, they've come to take me home. Oh, take me home.
Wow. Hindemith, Bach, Peter Gabriel. Woo! Special welcome to those of you who are here for the first time today. It is an act of courage to come to a congregation that you're not familiar with, because everybody knows everybody and they know the songs and know when to stand and when to sit. So I want to acknowledge your courage in coming, and I hope that you come back many, many more times. And it is good to be with you today. My wife and I have lived in Ohio for 4 years now, after living in New York City for 15 years. Well, we lived in Staten Island, so it's almost New York City. I know, it's a cheap joke, but... And it's good to be back in the New York City area, even for just a few days. Now, people from other places say New Yorkers are not friendly. And I totally disagree. I believe we are very friendly, but we're not nosy either. Quick example, I was walking in Manhattan, and I was up around Broadway and 50th something or another, and the woman in front of me was approached by another woman, and the approaching woman said, "How do I get to 8th and 47th? And she said, "Well, down here 2 blocks and down a couple and you're there." And the woman said, "Great, thanks." And they parted. It's great. That's a New York experience. Of course we're friendly. We're happy to give you directions. But in Ohio, more than once, a salesperson or a med tech has attempted to engage me in the smallest of talk. And my first thought is, it's none of your damn business. But I take a breath and smile and remind myself I'm not in New York City anymore. Now, I'm guessing most of you have heard the story of the frog and the scorpion, or one very much like it. Show of hands, who've heard it? Yeah, it's a familiar one. Sometimes it's a scorpion, sometimes a snake, sometimes an alleged public servant. The scorpion, was he being true to himself? Was he being true to the frog? Was the scorpion speaking with integrity in his interactions with the frog? Scorpion said, "Hey, we're going to drown if I sting you." And then he stings the frog, and with his dying breath dismisses it with, "Hey, it's who I am." So connected with who he was that he committed to his own destruction. And how often have we humans heard or participated in chosen destructive behavior with, "Well, it's how I was raised." It's as though they were subject to the laws of instinct rather than reflection. Frog and scorpion's a good story, but okay, that doesn't apply to us. This month's service theme is soul matters. Today it's integrity, right? So we all know what integrity is. It's doing what you'll say you'll do when nobody's looking. We've all experienced a situation where it's a lot easier to be selfish than to act with integrity. Books, movies, plays have pivoted on this challenge of what it's like to be a person of and with integrity. Now, if I understand the research on integrity, it points to mindfully choosing a code of conduct and a willingness to abide by that code. And understanding that, yes, there are choices rather than reflexive instinct. And as we heard during our opening words, we open ourselves to whatever breaks in upon us, or transforms us, or heals us, or enlightens us, or summons us to witness or decide, yeah, scorpion can't do that. In our second reading concerning empathy, Leslie Jamison hits on notes which absolutely resonate with integrity. We heard sometimes we care for another because we know we should or because it's asked for, but this doesn't make our caring hollow. The act of choosing simply means we've committed ourselves to a set of behaviors greater than the sum of our individual inclinations, unquote. We've committed ourselves to a set of behaviors greater than our individual inclinations. That sounds familiar somehow. Oh yeah, it's in our principles, the 7 principles, which are in the very front few pages of our gray hymnal. If you haven't had a chance to look, I invite you to. Our principles are not a creed, and I'm going to rant on creeds for just a second. One of the outcomes of a creed is an affirmation of who is us and who is them. They are not like us. They don't believe as we do. So maybe we have a little justification for sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle, excluding behavior. Our 7 principles offer guidance without demanding fealty. Our 7th, which some of us think ought to be the first, is the affirmation that we are all together in this. Together. UUs, UCCs, Jews, Methodists, Muslims, Quakers, Zoroastrians, atheists, agnostics, gay, straight, Republicans, Democrats, unaffiliated. You get the picture. We're all in it together. Our principles serve as a North Star for a life better lived, singularly and in community. On the same page as the principles, we also find our sources from which we draw our principles, which is to say they didn't spring from whole cloth. They're codified from many sources which affirm the North Star-ness of our principles. If you've been around Unitarian Universalism for a while, you may react to the 7 principles like Kermit the Frog when he sang, "I've heard it too many times to ignore it. It's something I'm supposed to be." We're called to the principles. We aren't born with them. They aren't baked in. We choose them. And the opportunity to choose them is every day. We heard in our second reading, this confession of effort chafes against the notion that empathy should always rise unbidden. That genuine means the same thing as unwilled, that intentionality is the enemy of love. But I believe in intention, and I believe in work. Again, she's writing about empathy, but I believe she's spot on about integrity as well. It is an intended sort of thing. I choose to believe in our principles as a North Star, and as such, I witness that in the way I live. I struggle with making the hard right choice when making a lesser choice would be so much easier. And what about the authenticity to our personal interior integrity? What about the choices we make while listening to that still small voice within, that voice that nobody knows and nobody sees and nobody knows but me? What happens when that voice calls? I've heard it too many times to ignore it. It's something I'm supposed to be. Peter Gabriel heard it. He had a spectacular career with the band Genesis. He was a founding member. The fame, the money, the drugs, the groupies, it was all there. And it wasn't all there for him. He knew the North Star of his musician's soul was leading him away from the band. And his struggle was shared by Blythe and the guys. Really nice rendition, thank you, of Salisbury Hill. The opening lines, climbing up on Salisbury Hill, I could see the city light. Wind was blowing. Time stood still. Eagle flew out of the night. He was something to observe, came in close. I heard a voice. Standing, stretching, every nerve, had to listen, had no choice. I did not believe the information, just had to trust my imagination. My heart going boom, boom, boom. Son, he said, grab your things. I've come to take you home. Whew. We've all been there, climbing up Salisbury Hill, struggling up the mountain in the face of doubt, personal challenge, perhaps scorn from colleagues, yet we hear a voice. We have to listen. We have no choice. But it calls. It calls to my imagination. It calls me to the very core of who I am and what I believe. And my heart goes boom, boom, boom. We've all had at least one of those moments. And I'd venture if I opened the floor to stories, we'd be here well into tomorrow. Living our life of integrity invariably gives us those boom, boom, boom moments. It's about the choice. We who choose to live by a set of values which calls us to our most authentic, our most relational selves. We all have a choice which some days calls to us. A voice that calls to us, it says, it's all for me and to hell with you. It's the nature of being human. And that kind of resonates with the way of the scorpion. But unlike the scorpion, we are people who can choose integrity. We can make choices which are well beyond, hey, it's my nature, or the way we were raised. And sometimes our heart goes boom, boom, boom over that choice. Theologically, we are free of any cosmic pie in the sky which we have to qualify for. Our universalism teaches if there is something after we die, we will join with the Spirit which created us, regardless of our stupid human tricks. It's all about what we do now. We've all had our scorpion-inspired moments in which we made an excuse for self-sabotaging action with, hey, that's just the way I am. We've done it. We've all done it. Our second reading, Leslie writes, I believe in intention. I believe in work. And so it is work. The witness to our mindfully disciplined embracing of the North Star of integrity, born of the 7 principles which guide us, remind us that we're all in it together, and we are together, we are doing the work. Yeah, and sometimes our heart goes boom, boom, boom when we're doing the work and choosing integrity. May we embrace the new year with a renewed reflection on our 7 principles, on our call to living a life with and a life of integrity. May it be, and amen. Well, let's sing. In your teal hymn books, 1028, Fire of Commitment, I invite you to stand as you are willing and able. From the now, as the voyage of life bears us on separate courses, forget not that the same stars shine over us, that we are warmed by the same sun, and the same ideals stir in our hearts while we are apart, one from another. Our meeting is now over, but our service continues. Amen.